And we're back live here on Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here on a Wednesday afternoon. Got my right-hand man, Chris Daughtry, helping us out this afternoon, per usual, producing today's live show. Plenty of stuff to talk about, most notably, of course, Sam Hubbard announced his retirement from the National Football League earlier this morning after 7 seasons in the NFL, all of which with the Cincinnati Bengals. Show your love for Sam Hubbard. Type those 94s for me in the comments section of today's video. I know I was a big Sam Hubbard guy. I'm sure most of you guys were as well. Just embodies everything you want out of a Cincinnati Bengal. Of course, he is the Cincinnati kid. Went to high school really down the road from me as I grew up in Cincinnati here as well. Lots of love for Sam Hubbard, so get those 94s in the comment section. Heck of a career. 7 seasons, 7 incredible seasons here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Going to be spending a lot of time talking about Sam Hubbard in segment 1 of our live show today, but super happy to be back live this week. Last week, obviously, we were not live. Typically, we go live around 4:45-ish on Wednesday afternoons. Last week did not do that because we were at the NFL Combine. Had a bit of a crazy time at the NFL Combine. We won't go into too much of specifics here, but we ran into some issues with some people coming into our Airbnb and taking some stuff. How about that? We'll leave it at that. But anyways, we were able to persevere through that. Got all the equipment back, and we're still able to get content out to you guys. So happy to be back here in Cincinnati. Happy to be live once again here at the channel. Happy my guy Chris Daughtry is here helping me out as well. We'll give some shout-outs here as you guys continue to spam your 94s in the comments section. Cincinnati Buckeyes, he's in the chat. Bengals Fan 29 says, hi, Stone. How's it going? Bengals Fan 29. My guy CWT here per usual. He's excited. Tim Tyra. Appreciate Tim Tyra. Always being with us here at Bengals Breakdown. All of our live shows, all of our live streams, all of our videos that we put out on demand. You can always count on Tim Tyra. Really appreciate that. Rick Lally says 94 will be missed. Absolutely no doubt. Unfortunate that he wasn't able to get a ring here in Cincinnati. Came very close twice, obviously once going to the Super Bowl. So that's probably something that, when he goes to bed at night, that probably will frustrate him for a little bit, but he has a ton to be proud of. An incredible career here in Cincinnati. And I think there's a lot to say that, he was able to play his entirety of his career here in Cincinnati. The Bengals, were they probably going to move off him? Probably, but he ultimately gets the decision. He retires. Again, we'll go into more specifics here once we get into our segment, but big shout-out to Sam Hubbard. We appreciate all he did for the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals legend, no doubt. We'll talk potential Ring of Honor stuff here. I know some people kind of scoff at that, but when you think about what he did in the community with his foundation, number one, and his postseason success, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked, I should say, if one day he did end up in the Bengals Ring of Honor. Also, on today's show, we'll talk a little bit about T. Higgins. Actually, not really a ton, but I think with free agency around the corner, this is always a reasonable question to ask you guys. Obviously, if Cincinnati can reach an extension with T. Higgins prior to free agency, which, by the way, is next week, that would be very beneficial for them as an organization because it would give them some more flexibility when it comes to the cap. His cap hit will be less if it is not the tag, and if they have a long-term deal worked out with him. Let me know. Will the Cincinnati Bengals sign T. Higgins to a long-term contract before free agency, which starts next week? There's kind of that legal tampering period, right, on Monday. It doesn't officially get kicked off until Wednesday, I believe, but me personally, I would be shocked if Cincinnati was able to sign T. Higgins before free agency. Indications are, as of now, that they're not really super close in terms of an extension with Higgins and the organization. Is it troubling? It's not ideal, right? Especially after the comments Duke Tobin made at the NFL Combine. You would like them to be a little bit further along in the process, but it doesn't appear that is the case right now. Really, for me, they don't get it done before free agency, that's okay, right, to me personally. It's just that you don't want to go into the summer screwing around with this again. Obviously, that July 15th deadline is what's looming. You don't want to work into late June, early July, still not have this thing done. You want to get it taken care of as quickly as possible. Dr. B's got an N in the comment section for us. Tim Tyra, he's optimistic. He says, why? Something will get done before next week. Jacob just got it. Also optimistic. Tim just switched it to an N. I see you there, Tim. Probably the smart decision there. Derek's Young, though, is optimistic there as well. Desert Ranger Jesus hanging out. Appreciate you, Jesus. Haven't seen you in here in a while. Could always count on Jesus being in here for all of our live streams. Pleasure to have you back. Buddy's got adventure spamming his ends in the comment section. He is not confident the Bengals will reach a long-term deal with T. Higgins prior to free agency. Also going to be talking free agents coming up here on today's show. Our second segment is going to be dedicated towards defensive free agents, obviously. Kicks off next week. Bengals probably will add several guys to their defense. We will break down 25 names here on our show, so stick around for that. Get some names in the comment section. Let me know who you want the Bengals to sign this offseason in free agency. Could be an offensive guy, could be a defensive guy. Doesn't matter. We're going to be spending our time talking about the defensive side of the football. By the way, we have a video out already on the channel talking about the offensive side of the football, but today is going to be dedicated towards defense. Epic MX says Chase Young. We have spent a lot of time talking about Chase Young. I'm certainly open to the idea of bringing Chase Young back to Ohio and having him play for the Cincinnati Bengals. CWT, Matthew Judon of the Atlanta Falcons. That will be a name we discuss here on today's show. Javon Holland, also another name out of the Miami Dolphins, could potentially help secure the Bengals' back end of their defense. They added there in free agency last year with Geno Stone and Von Bell. Didn't work out ultimately. Indications around the team, by the way, it seems like they want to run it back with Geno Stone, which in my opinion is a mistake. But I would love to add another safety, whether through free agency or early in the 2025 NFL Draft. Buddy's Great Adventure says Sweat. Yes, of the Eagles. Josh Sweat, that would be. And, it's going to cost a pretty penny to be able to reel him in, especially after his performance in the postseason for Philadelphia and really in the Super Bowl as well. Was able to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground several times, so he is going to garner a sizable deal this offseason, no doubt about that. Who else we got here? See a lot of Javon Hollands. A lot of Josh Sweats. CWT, did Zach Bond get a contract? He did. So Philadelphia took care of Saquon Barkley yesterday, and then they took care of not Josh Sweat, Zach Bond. Took care of him today, so they will be sticking around in Philadelphia. All right, now if you are ready for our live show to start here this afternoon, give us a like. Only got 17 likes here on today's video. Always going for that 50-50 like ratio between viewers and likes. Help us out. Hit that thumbs up icon if you haven't done so already. Really something that helps us out across the board, whether it is a short that you see on YouTube, one of my Twitter posts that you see, just a normal video on demand, a live show. Likes always help us out, so we're always plugging that, and we always appreciate when you guys hit that thumbs up icon. So we'll sit here for a minute, try to get to 30 likes. We have 27 right now, just a couple of more, and then we'll get things going here on Bengals Breakdown, and I'll tell you what we got on tap. Got 4 segments coming your guys' way. Got 27 likes here. Let's get to 30. There it is, 30 likes right there on the spot. Appreciate all you guys for liking today's video. Coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown, all the latest news and rumors here in the first segment, talking, of course, most notably about Sam Hubbard and his retirement. Segment number 2 is all about defensive free agent targets. Free agency gets underway next week. We're going to talk about 25 guys on the defensive side of the ball that could be potential free agent targets for the Cincinnati Bengals. Segment number 3, a mailbag. Get your questions in, hashtag Bengals or Super Chat to get involved with our show here today on Bengals Breakdown. Again, that's segment number 3. You don't have to wait till then to get your questions in. You can get them in right now. But if you don't use hashtag Bengals, my guy Chris can't find your comment, can't get you involved with our show. But if you want to Super Chat, skip the line altogether, you are free to do that as well. And lastly, closing out our live show here today, Dane Brugler is out with another mock draft, and we're going to be breaking down who he has Cincinnati taken at number 17 overall. All coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown. What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we've got several news items to touch on. Obviously, most notably, Sam Hubbard announced his retirement from the National Football League earlier this morning. We're going to break that down. Also, going to hear from Zac Taylor around the corner and what he had to say from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis last week in regards to Sam Hubbard. Also, going to be breaking down a potential free agent target for Cincinnati. Obviously, free agency gets underway next week. Alex Cappa was released recently by the Cincinnati Bengals. He has already been picked up by the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to spend some time talking about Cap, his tenure in Cincinnati. And lastly, to close out the show, Paul Dehner Jr. coming out of the Combine, our guy from The Athletic. He broke down guys on the Cincinnati's Bengals roster whose stock is rising and who's falling. I'm not going to break down his whole article, but there's one player in particular I want to touch on that is believed to have rising stock. Before we get into all that, though, make sure you guys hit that sub button if you have not done so already. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Our next goal here at the channel is 17,500 subscribers. We are about 300 away from making that happen. We will be here all off season long, and next week we will have free agency coverage for you guys as well. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. All right, so Sam Hubbard has retired from the NFL after 7 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll kind of go a little bit more in depth here in a moment with kind of my thoughts on the whole situation. Really, I'm not surprised that this is a decision that ultimately Sam Hubbard and his family, friends, team opted to make. And he's going to be done playing in the NFL. 7 great seasons, 7 phenomenal seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. I and the rest of the Chat Sports crew was at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis last week. I had an opportunity to ask Zac Taylor about Sam Hubbard, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, Sam Hubbard, one of my all-time favorites till the day I die, just because this dude's all ball. He's all about the team. He's represented himself and his family and community that way since Bowler to Ohio State to Cincinnati Bengals. You're going to talk to every person in that man's life, and they're all going to tell you the same thing. One of the greatest people he'll ever be around. Really cared more about others than he cared about himself, quite frankly, and that's why he's experienced all the success. Because when you've got a team full of Sam Hubbards, then you're going to achieve success because they're just doing what's best for everybody else and willing to make sacrifices. And I had to beg him to go out there to run that pass route and catch a touchdown pass, on his final play of the season. But again, Sam's one of those guys that, is just one of the all-time favorites.
Just an incredible answer there from head coach Zac Taylor, right? Really was blown away with what he had to say about Sam Hubbard. It is very clear how much love and appreciation he has for Sam Hubbard. Obviously, in the clip, just called him one of his all-time favorites. Now, in regards to the retirement itself, this is not a surprise whatsoever to me. Just hearing people around Hubbard, it's very evident that his body is beat down at this point. Again, he played at Moeller. He played at Ohio State in 7 long years in the NFL. That's what it does to your body. There's a lot of wear and tear that goes on, basically getting in a car wreck every single play when you play in one of those trench positions like, of course, Sam Hubbard did. And apparently he has lost a little bit of weight as well since the offseason. All indications to me that he probably was going to retire. Now, on top of that, I don't think he wanted to play for another team. I think the Bengals probably were going to cut Sam Hubbard. Not probably. They definitely were going to cut Sam Hubbard, and it would have been a matter of he would come back to the team at a lower number or ultimately decide to play elsewhere. But Sam Hubbard decides to hang it up after 7 amazing seasons. And really, he is a Bengals legend. Absolutely no doubt about it. He stuck through it, through thick and thin with this organization. Again, it's been here for 7 years. They haven't been good for 7 years. Those first few years were very, very rough. Sam Hubbard showed up to work every single day with a smile on his face and a great attitude, and it really allowed Cincinnati to continue to head in the right direction. I thought the leadership that he brought was outstanding as well, was several times named a captain during his time here in the Cincinnati organization. And also, one other thing I want to add about Hubbard, I'm not ruling out the Ring of Honor when I'm talking about a guy like Sam Hubbard. Now, some people might scoff at that a little bit, and that's totally fine. But think about some of the stuff that he has done. The impact that he has had off the field, the stuff he has done with his foundation in the community is absolutely phenomenal. And that, to me, goes towards something like the Ring of Honor. And on top of that, postseason success. Sam Hubbard in the postseason was absolutely lights out. Obviously, everyone remembers the fumble in the jungle. That's what people will who don't know Sam Hubbard, who aren't Bengals fans, will always remember Sam Hubbard for that play. That alone could get him in the Ring of Honor. Just an unbelievable play. I get chills every time I watch that. The call from Tirico is incredible. Running it back 99 yards against Baltimore in the playoffs. How can you beat it? You really can't. And on top of that, had a massive, sack against Mahomes in the AFC Championship game that helped propel them to the Super Bowl. So he was really lights out in the playoffs, and I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up in the Ring of Honor one day, despite the fact he only had 7 years and really, from a stats perspective, didn't necessarily light it up. Show some love for our guy Sam Hubbard in the comments section of today's video. Spam your 94s right now. It is the pinned comment of today's show, so if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. All right, let's transition a little bit here on today's show. Obviously, the Bengals released Alex Cappa a couple of days ago, and he has already been swept up by the Las Vegas Raiders. 2 years, $11.2 million deal for Alex Cappa. Now, the reason I wanted to kind of talk about this is some people are kind of like, how the heck? He was the worst guard in the league last year. How in the world could you be paying him that kind of money? And I hear you, but I do think Alex Cappa deserves a lot of credit for what he was able to do here in Cincinnati. The Bengals, of course, picked him up in free agency going into the 2022 season, and he was phenomenal that season for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was considered their best offensive lineman. Then what happened? He suffered an ankle injury right before going into the playoffs. It was when the Bengals had to play that silly game to get the home field, right? There was the whole, ruckus about, why exactly they had to play this game. Well, Alex Cappa ended up getting hurt in that game. And they ended up losing, of course, in the AFC Championship. If Cappa doesn't get hurt and he plays the way in that game that he had played the whole season, Bengals could have went to the Super Bowl again. Shoot, they could have won it again. He would have had an opportunity to slow down Chris Jones a little bit. So what he did in 2022 alone deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, never really returned to form after that. 2024 was a stinker of a year for Alex Cappa. Absolutely no doubt about it. But he won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. Brady, of course, is kind of calling the shots in Vegas here at this point. Not a surprise that Cappa lands on his feet. We will see if he is able to rebound a little bit for Vegas here next season. If he does, I think that is an indictment on Frank Pollock, perhaps not being able to get the most out of Alex Cappa. But regardless, great guy. Happy he was able to land on his feet and get a deal with the Raiders. We'll continue with our show here in a moment. But first, a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. I want to let you guys know that Bengals sideline hats are out right now. They are available right now. Really encourage you guys to get over there and check out some of these Bengals sideline hats. That's chatsports.com/Bengals sideline. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Next up here, the Bengals could potentially sign Javon Hargrave. Why? Well, the 49ers are expected to release Javon Hargrave from their football team, and he certainly would help fill a position of need for the Cincinnati Bengals along the interior of their defensive line. Let's take a look at what Jeremy Fowler of ESPN tweeted out today about Javon Hargrave. He said, teams were notified that 49ers defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, who will be a post-June 1 release by the team, is healthy, coming off his tricep injury per sources. He will be available to sign March 12th, start of the new league year. Now, I do want to make note, this is a guy that only played 3 games last year for the San Francisco 49ers, tore his right triceps. That's why we really haven't heard a ton coming out about a guy like Javon Hargrave. But again, Fowler says he's 100% healthy and is ready to make an impact. He had at least 7 sacks from 2021 to 2023. Bengals have been, starving for sack production out of the interior of their defensive line. B.J. Hill did a nice job for him, but were they really able to get sacks? No, not really. Hargrave certainly could help. 4-year, $84 million deal in 2023, so he got some good money there. But again, he's going to be released by the 49ers and certainly could be a guy that Cincinnati looks to come in, provide a veteran presence in that room that has a lot of youth along the interior of their defensive line, and perhaps boost Al Golden's defense in year 1. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Would you sign Javon Hargrave if you're the Bengals? Let me know in the comments. Type Y for yes or N for no. So Paul Dehner Jr. put out a great piece for The Athletic, as he always does, kind of detailing some guys that he believed their stock was rising or falling after talking with people within the Bengals organization at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. I'm not going to break down the whole article here on today's show. Just wanted to point out one guy that he believes his stock is rising, and that guy you're looking right at in there is Logan Wilson. Let's take a look at what Al Golden had to say about Logan Wilson when he talked with some of the reporters in Indianapolis. He said, "He's one of the best people I've ever worked with. I tell stories about him all the time, just in terms of his competitiveness. I don't know if there is another linebacker in the same time frame he's been in the NFL who has more interceptions. He's got a knack for the ball. He's got great hands. It means something to him. I'm evaluating little things from last year, try to incorporate into what we're doing going forward, and I see Logan in space making tackles and defending it the way we want it defended. It brings back a lot of good memories. I can't wait to work with him again." I'm really excited about Logan Wilson. I have always been a Logan Wilson guy. Past couple of years really haven't been, I guess, up to his standard, so to speak, but I still thought he made a lot of great plays for your team last year if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think he was probably playing through that injury a little bit longer than a lot of us realized as it was happening in real time. He certainly was the better linebacker, I thought, despite, of course, Jermaine Pratt recording more tackles. Pratt, of course, played more games, but it felt like Wilson was a more sure tackler. Again, those ball skills, we haven't seen those interception numbers in 2024 be as good as they were early in Wilson's career, but I have a lot of confidence and a lot of faith that Al Golden is going to be able to help Logan Wilson get back to prime form like he was when they went to the Super Bowl in 2021. When Wilson was a young player that year, he really was one of the main reasons Cincinnati was able to get to the big game that year, and I'm looking for Wilson to get back to that form. Probably going to have new guys around him, but I think Logan Wilson is a guy that you could lean on if you're Al Golden to really be a leader on your defense. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you have not done so already. Plenty of coverage coming your guys' way this offseason. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Bengals TV. Name a free agent you want to sign. Let me know in the comments of today's show. That is segment number 2 coming up. Appreciate everybody spamming their 94s for Sam Hubbard. If you just joined us, appreciate you. Sam Hubbard, of course, announced his retirement earlier this morning. Thought it was very much expected. A little bit emotional nonetheless. Bengals legend Sam Hubbard. Incredible 7-year career with the Cincinnati Bengals. Dr. B, says Chase Young. Certainly a name that we have discussed a lot. I'm open to bringing in Chase Young if I am the Cincinnati Bengals. DJ Reed, says Tim Tyra. Cornerback. We will talk about him coming up on today's show as well. Good point there from my guy Jesus. A lot of big names that are being thrown around in the chat. Obviously, they are expensive. DJ Reed going to garner a sizable deal, as will Sweat of the Philadelphia Eagles. Keep the comments coming. And we've got 25 names that we will get to here in our segment dedicated towards defensive free agent targets. Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I'm your host, Stone Shields. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here this afternoon. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at the top 25 Bengals free agent targets on the defensive side of the football. We had a video that came out a week or so ago detailing guys on the offensive side. Today, we are going to be spending time talking about guys on the defensive side as well. So stay tuned for that. Got 25 names that we will be breaking down for you guys here on today's show. But before we get into that, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, @StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. Also, see a lot more short-form content up there these days as well. Trying to get to 600 followers. Help me out so I can help the bosses out, make them happy. Trying to get to 600 here in the coming weeks. Give me a follow over on Twitter @StoneShields_. All right, let's talk pass rusher here at that edge spot. Obviously, Sam Hubbard is no longer going to be out there for the Cincinnati Bengals after he announced his retirement, but even if he was coming back, Cincinnati has a lot of work to do in that regard. A lot of uncertainty at this position of the defense. So let's get into some potential edge rusher candidates for the Cincinnati Bengals. First up here is Khalil Mack. I'm start out with a big name here in Khalil Mack. He's kind of molding his future. I think he will come back ultimately and end up playing football another season at the professional level. He is a guy that obviously came into the league years ago as a phenomenal player out of Buffalo, and he really has delivered no matter where he has been, whether it be Vegas, whether it be Chicago, whether it be Los Angeles. Khalil Mack is a guy that when he comes in, your defense immediately gets better. I still believe he has a lot to offer in this league. Second guy up here, Josh Sweat out of the Philadelphia Eagles. Sweat's a guy that made himself a ton of money really throughout the entirety of the season, but more specifically in the playoffs, and even more specifically than that, the Super Bowl with his performance. Was able to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground a few times. The rumblings around the NFL at this point are that the Eagles are not going to be able to retain him, so he is going to cash in free agency this offseason. Will Cincinnati be able to spend that much money on a guy like Josh Sweat? Probably not, given the priorities that they have in line, but he certainly is a guy that makes your defense and your pass rush a heck of a lot better. Haason Reddick here of the New York Jets. Reddick, of course, really had a tumultuous season last year. He was holding out. Eventually was able to come back, play some football. Is he the same player that he once was in Philadelphia? I'm not quite sure, but I'm not looking for drama. And it seems like Reddick has moved past that, but that still is a lot of drama there for me. I'm probably staying away from Haason Reddick personally. Baron Browning, edge rusher here out of the Denver Broncos. Baron Browning is a guy that, of course, went to Ohio State. We spent a lot of time talking about Baron Browning kind of coming up for the trade deadline as a guy that potentially Cincinnati would want to bring in. Of course, spent some time with the Arizona Cardinals as well. I am still interested in bringing in Baron Browning, and I think you could do so at a decent price as well. Matthew Judon, next up here on this list, had a great start to his career with the New England Patriots, most recently, of course, playing with the Atlanta Falcons. I am a big fan of Judon's game. Taking a look here at some of these numbers. Still was very productive, I would say, for you in 2024. Played all 17 games as well. Had some pass breakups. He's a guy that can drop back in coverage, and he's a really versatile player. I certainly am interested in getting Matt Judon here in Cincinnati. Leads us to the pinned comment of today's video. Do you want the Bengals to sign an edge rusher? Obviously, need to address that room in some capacity, whether it's through the draft, free agency, trade, or a combination of all three. But let me know. Do you want the Bengals to sign one in free agency? Type Y for yes or N for no. If that ad comes here on YouTube, totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let's move towards the interior of the defensive line here at this point. Lots of work to do here as well. B.J. Hill probably no longer going to be with the Cincinnati Bengals as he is a free agent. Didn't, of course, include him on this list. But you're looking to build around young guys like Chris Jenkins Jr. and McKinley Jackson. First up, Javon Kinlaw here on this list out of the New York Jets. This is a guy that comes in, brings that veteran presence. It's going to be a common theme that we're going to be talking about really along all positions of your defense. I would like him to come in, potentially be a really good player for you. It's all a matter of you can get him at the right price. Poona Ford, another guy that gets floated around a lot, seemingly every offseason, and continues to play at a high level, no matter where he is at, whether it's Seattle, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's the Los Angeles Chargers. I am a big believer in Poona Ford. I think he's a quality player, and I think he would fit along really nicely in Al Golden's defense. DJ Jones, another guy that we talked about around the trade deadline as well with the Denver Broncos. I think Denver's really defensive line as a whole was really, really underrated last year. And I think a big part of that was DJ Jones. It's a guy that's a big body. He comes in there and look at all those games that he has played. I want guys that are going to be available. DJ Jones certainly is available at all times. Calais Campbell, the guy just continues to play great football. It really is hard to believe. He is, defying father time, really, at this point. Continues to play outstanding football at the professional level. Most recently with Miami, was it with Atlanta before that. The Bengals, of course, went up against him a lot when he was with Baltimore as well. He's a guy that I've been saying that Bengals should be trying to get for seemingly the past few years. They haven't done it yet, but I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I would be interested in bringing in a guy like Calais Campbell. Great for the locker room, too, as well. Sebastian Joseph Day out of the Titans. I would say Sebastian Joseph Day's career really to this point probably hasn't culminated the way that he would have hoped or liked, or certainly the way Tennessee would either. Kind of taking a flyer on going in for a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day. Just a matter of if you can get him at a reasonable price or not. We'll continue with our defensive free agent targets here in a moment, but first, a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Want to let you guys know that Bengals sideline hats are out and they are available now. That's chatsports.com/Bengals sideline. I've got a few of these myself. Really, really love them. Obviously, it is the off season, but that doesn't mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals swag courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. It's chatsports.com/Bengals sideline. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Let's go corner here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cam Taylor-Britt probably going to be back for you at that corner spot, but really a disastrous 2024 season for him. Josh Newton is across from him with, uncertainty around the health of Dax Hill and DJ Turner, but certainly a room that you want to address. Mike Hilton, by the way, probably gone as well. Byron Murphy, first up on this list. Byron Murphy's going to get a lot of money, but I absolutely love Byron Murphy. He was phenomenal for the Minnesota Vikings and was really good for the Arizona Cardinals prior to that as well. Again, he's going to get a sizable deal. You've got a lot of guys you got to pay, so I don't know if you can bring him in, but shoot, if you do, I think he really is a bona fide cornerback one in this league. Big fan of Byron Murphy Jr. DJ Reed, next up here out of the New York Jets. He's a guy that, spent some time in Seattle before going over to the New York Jets, and he's really kind of gone on a run here. He's a later round pick, when he was drafted, and he's starting to really play good football here. I think he's closing in on 30. I want to say he's in the high 20s right here, so he's looking to get one more big deal. Somebody's going to give it to him. I'm not super high on DJ Reed, but I wouldn't hate it, obviously, if Cincinnati were able to land him. Asante Samuel Jr., next up here, cornerback for the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm a big fan of him as well. Just question marks in regards to what exactly his contract is going to look like. Kind of a reoccurring theme here as we progress. 2024 only played 4 games. I want guys that are going to be out there and available to me at all times. The Bengals had some injury issues as well defensively. Obviously, you can only control a certain extent of that, but I do have interest in Asante Samuel Jr. Gilly, Stephon Gilmore, he's kind of at the point in his career where he plays a year and then he kind of regroups in the offseason and he sees what the plan is after that, but he's still playing at a high level, has certainly bounced around the past few years. Carolina, Indianapolis, Dallas, and most recently with the Minnesota Vikings. I still think he can play at a high level. He's a championship football player, obviously has championship experience when he was with New England, and would provide a great veteran presence and hopefully help out some of those young guys like Josh Newton in particular. Patriots guy here, Jonathan Jones, a guy that we talked about during the trade deadline as well. This is a guy that also is a world champion, has spent the entirety of his career with the New England Patriots, but he kind of got phased out of what they were doing in New England, and I think he will probably end up finding a new home this season. Bengals need a veteran to come in, especially with Mike Hilton probably on his way out. After his tweet, by the time this video comes out, he very well might officially be out. But Jonathan Jones is a guy that can provide some stability there for you on the back end. Don't miss out any Bengals free agency news or rumors. We got you covered here at the channel. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Bengals TV. Let's talk safety here on today's show. Geno Stone, I've come out and said that I probably would just cut Geno Stone, but it doesn't feel like Cincinnati is going to do that. I think they really liked what they got out of Jordan Battle to end the year, but I think you can't just run it back with the safety room. Von Bell's going to be gone. Got to bring some more bodies in. The hottest name out there at this point is Javon Holland of the Miami Dolphins. He's a guy that flies around, makes a lot of plays for you. Got really good ball skills, good speed as well, good leadership. I think Javon Holland's going to garner a sizable deal wherever he lands up. Next up here, Justin Simmons, a guy that, of course, was playing opposite Jesse Bates III. Man, do we miss Jesse Bates III. Anytime we're talking Atlanta, anytime we're talking safeties, I feel like I'm bringing up JB3. Boy, do I miss him, and I know all you guys do as well. But regardless, Justin Simmons was an elite safety in this league for a long time, especially when he was with Denver. I still thought he played at a high level this past year as well, 7 PBUs. He makes your defense better immediately if he were to come to town. Talanoa Hufanga of the San Francisco 49ers. He was a guy that really didn't do a ton for San Francisco this past year, but he really showed some flashes probably earlier in his career, particularly that 2022 season, really put up some big numbers. Has since fallen off a little bit, but if you get him in the right system with Al Golden, I think he can make your football team better. I do have some interest in him out of San Francisco. Trayvon Moehrig out of the Las Vegas Raiders, again at that safety position. He had a ton of tackles this past year for Las Vegas, racking up over 100. He's a guy that really is a versatile player that can wear several different hats for you. Could perhaps be a nice fill-in for a guy like Mike Hilton. Could line him up several different areas of the field, and he can show out there for you and make plays. Last up from a safety perspective here is Quandre Diggs. Most recently spent his time with the Tennessee Titans. You guys probably remember him the most from his time with the Seattle Seahawks. Numbers, obviously only played 7 games with Tennessee this past year. Not sure. Sometimes these DBs can really fall off quickly. I thought he did a lot of great stuff in his tenure in Seattle. But I'm probably staying away from Quandre Diggs personally. Talk linebackers here on today's show. We were going to say Zach Bond here at the top of this list, but he since has agreed to terms with the Philadelphia Eagles on an extension. So I've got Lavonte David up here. Now, David was, for a long time, one of the most underrated players, certainly one of the most underrated linebackers in professional football, but he is certainly aging. He's getting up there in age, but I thought he really showed some good stuff in spurts this year, particularly in the playoff game against Washington. I thought he had a really, really good game. You want to bring in an older guy at that linebacker spot. He is a great leader. I do have some interest, but you better not be paying him too much money. Nick Bolton is a phenomenal player out of Kansas City. I've said before on the show, you don't want to get into a habit of bringing in guys from KC, right? That's your main rival that isn't in the AFC North. But Bolton's been around the block. He's made big-time plays in big-time games, and he really would help your defense. Imagine him paired with Logan Wilson. My goodness, look out. That would be one of the best linebacking duos in the National Football League. I have some interest in bringing in Nick Bolton, but he will not be cheap. Robert Spillane kind of has flown under the radar here for Las Vegas, but he continually just decides or just goes out there and performs, does really well. Again, under the radar type guy. He's a guy that you're not going to bring in to be a starting linebacker for you, but he could certainly provide some depth for you at that linebacker spot. Bobby Wagner also on this list. Man, he just seemingly doesn't age. He had a phenomenal year for the Washington Commanders this past season. Bobby Wagner is a guy that provides instant leadership, but also is probably more of a one-year deal type guy, not a long-term solution. There's been a lot of rumors about him reuniting with his old coach Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. Wouldn't be opposed to a Bobby Wagner signing, but I would consider it very unlikely. E.J. Speed, last up here for the Indianapolis Colts at that linebacker spot. He also has kind of flown under the radar. I think he is a really solid player. I really think when you look at Indianapolis' defense top to bottom, there's a lot of solid players, and I'm expecting Lou Anarumo to come in there and be able to do some good things. But I do have interest in E.J. Speed. 142 tackles this past season, is able to fly around, is a real cerebral player as well, and always seems to be in the right place at the right time. I'm a fan of E.J. Speed. Mailbag time here on Bengals Breakdown. Get your questions in. Hashtag Bengals or Super Chat. Skip the line altogether. We want to get you guys involved. We want to get you guys interactive with our show here this afternoon. Chris, how we looking? Michael says trade Von Bell. Unfortunately, nobody wants to trade for Von Bell, so we'll see if he's able to stick around in the league as a professional. Obviously got phased out relatively early last year for Jordan Battle. I was a big fan of the experiment, right, bringing him in, the reunion with Cincinnati. But, nobody's going to trade for Von Bell. Get your questions in. Hashtag Bengals. See one from CWT there and Dr. B. Additionally, appreciate you guys getting those questions in. Also, remember, Super Chat, skip the line altogether, and you can get involved with our show as we get ready for our mailbag. Chris, are you good? We got enough? We ready to rock? All right. Without further ado, let's get into our mailbag segment. Make sure you guys share today's video for me on social media, any platform in which you desire, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It works for us. We're just trying to spread the word. Let everybody know out there that we have a lot of stuff going on here at Bengals Breakdown. I know there's a ton of Bengals fans out there that aren't necessarily tapped into what we are doing here at Bengals Breakdown. So help us out. Share today's video for me right now. First up here from Tim Tyra. Do the Bengals need to draft a tight end this year if we sign Mike G? Look, the Bengals are going to be interested in that tight end position. Really, when you look at Mike Gesicki, obviously a lot of us want him to be back. Hopefully the Gesicki and the team can work towards making that happen, but he really isn't a true tight end, right? He's kind of like a big slot that goes out there. Now, Eric Hall Jr., on the other hand, was your perfect tight end. Unfortunately, he is going to be out for the entirety of the 2025 season, so that kind of throws a wrench in some of your plans there. So, kind of to answer your question, I think the Bengals certainly are going to be interested in adding a tight end. A lot of people have, thrown out the idea of, if Tyler Warren falls in the first round, do you take him? Probably if he falls. I'd be surprised if he did. But I think at some point, whether through the draft or free agency, Cincinnati, Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor will be looking to add to that tight end room. CWT, are you worried about the Bengals roster depth considering the personnel that's leaving the team? I think you're always worried going into the offseason, especially after you miss the playoffs. There are a lot of holes on this team. I think you had a lot of star power that made up for a lot of those holes. So to answer your question, yeah, I'd say I definitely am concerned about the depth here. You definitely need to bring in some new guys. You definitely need to draft well in the process as well. So there's a lot you got to do here this offseason to improve your depth, particularly on the defensive side of the football. I want some veterans to come in and help these young guys along. You can't just sit there and draft guys and expect that to be the entirety of your roster. Yeah, you've seen teams do that in the past, but for whatever reason, Cincinnati hasn't been able to draft at an elite level. Needs some veterans that can come in and help, particularly on defense. From Sean, thoughts on releasing Alex Cappa? I think it was something that had to be done, right? You couldn't just run it back with the same guys along the interior based on the season that you had in 2024. Priority number one, obviously we all want to clean up the defense. We all want that to be better. But priority number one is protecting Joe Burrow. And frankly, you haven't done a great job of that since he has been here in the National Football League. And Alex Cappa deserves a little bit of blame for that. But I do want to point out how great he was for you in 2022. He was phenomenal. He was your best offensive lineman that year. Then unfortunately gets hurt right before the playoffs. If he doesn't get hurt before the playoffs, do you beat Kansas City? Do you go on to play in the Super Bowl? Do you win that Super Bowl? I don't know, maybe. But Alex Cappa, if you had to go back and do it again, the signing you made in 2022, you absolutely did it. It provided stability for you along the offensive line. And unfortunately, it just kind of didn't end the way that anybody wanted it to with the poor season that he had in 2024. Leads to the pinned comment of today's video. Name a player you want to cut. Is there somebody else out there that you would like to move on from? Sound off for me in the comments of today's show. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Down in the comments, let us know what you think. From Norman, do you think there will be a big splash free agent signing on the defense this year? Probably not, is what I would say. Just the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't tend to make splashy moves. I would consider a splashy move to be you bring back, T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson, and you make Jamar Chase happy. That would be kind of the splash move, in my opinion. Hopefully they will add. We saw it last year. They added during free agency. I expect them to do that again. But as far as some massive name like a Josh Sweat or something along those lines, I probably do not foresee that being in the cards. Tim Tyra, once again, do you think we should have made a trade with the 49ers for Debo? Commanders got him for a 5th-round pick. No, I do not. Debo Samuel certainly went on a great run there, but kind of showed some selfish tendencies, which I'm not looking for if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, you're not going to get the ball a ton here. You're playing with Jamar Chase and hopefully T. Higgins as well. So I don't think Debo to Cincinnati would make sense. Another guy that could potentially become available, Cooper Kupp. That intrigues me a lot. I would love to have Cooper Kupp here, but I'm glad the Bengals didn't pursue Debo Samuel. Hopefully things work out for him in Washington, but not a guy that I wanted here in the Queen City. We'll continue with our show here in a moment, but first, a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. They also now offer MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. They also have the Flex Play. Big fan of the Flex Play here with Prize Picks. This is what our baseball guy, Jack Lauderay, threw together. Season-long Prize Picks, by the way. Going with the more than for Paul Skeens strikeouts. Also going with the more than for Tarek Skubal strikeouts. And also Jarren Duran, more than 17.5 home runs. Beautiful thing about the Flex Play, you don't have to get all 3 correct. You can miss out and still have an opportunity to double your money. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Next up here from Brian. Do you think we will T or let him walk next year? Do you think we will pay T or let him walk next year? I still believe Cincinnati will pay T. Higgins. I think I've talked about this before on the show. Duke Tobin makes his comments at the NFL Combine. Everybody's kind of on cloud 9, right? This is great. And then T. Higgins tweets out the cap emoji, whatever, getting on social media. And, basically saying the Bengals were lying. And then you start to go down, and then you hear the reports that the sides aren't close together. But at this point where we stand right now, we're not in a great spot. But I do think ultimately Cincinnati will get this done, mainly because Joe Burrow wants it done. If he didn't go out there and say the things he's saying, I don't know if I have much confidence that it would, but I don't think they're going to, basically say screw you to Joe Burrow. They're going to make this happen at some point. Frankie, I am sad about Sam Hubbard. I understand, Frankie. I totally feel you. I am a little bit as well, but man, it was a heck of a run for Sam Hubbard. Cincinnati legend, 7 years with the Bengals. Credit to him. He was able to play his entirety of his professional career with the Cincinnati Bengals. Went to Moeller High School. Went to Ohio State. Ohio guy, born and raised. Really, the only regret that I have is that the Bengals weren't able to get him a Super Bowl. That's really the only regret that I have. They were going to cut him, but, I would have loved for him to come back at a cheap discount next year and try to get a ring. But, again, that's really the only disappointment I have with Sam Hubbard's career. Thought he did a tremendous job on and off the field. Great role model for a lot of people as well. Elite in the community. Can't say enough good things about Sam Hubbard. And we heard Zach Taylor talk about him like that at the NFL Combine as well. Show some love for Sam Hubbard in the comments section. Spam your 94s for me. Get those in the comments of today's show. Let's see how many we can get in there. Show your love for 94, Bengals legend, Cincinnati kid, Sam Hubbard. After being at the Combine, has your option changed on any draft targets? Good question here from CWT. To be completely honest with you, I would say no. I still want to look. Malachi Starks didn't test well, right? He has fallen out of the first round in some mocks, but I'm still taking him at 17. But also, I'm very much of the mindset, hey, best defensive player available. I think there's so many question marks with a lot of these edge rushers. They need development, things like that. I want somebody that can go out there, contribute immediately, be a starter immediately. I think Malachi Starks has that ability, so I really haven't pivoted too much off of that, but great question there from CWT. Tim Tyrus, should the Bengals sign Robert Spillane, formerly with the Raiders? Something we've discussed here on the show previously. I don't think he's a guy that's going to come in and start next to Logan Wilson. I don't think he is that caliber of a player, to be completely honest with you. But you never know. I think the Bengals certainly will take a look at that, entertain that a little bit, and we will see if ultimately they make that decision. But I would like someone else to come in personally and be Logan Wilson's running mate, whether through the draft or free agency. If you're enjoying this mailbag, you are in for a treat because we're going to continue to do these on a weekly basis. But don't miss out. Hit that sub button right now for more Bengals Breakdown mailbags, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Who's your running back pick in the draft from Teddy here at Bengals Breakdown? Ooh, good question here from Teddy. Previously we have done mock drafts here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Haven't done a ton with the running back position. Obviously, look at guys at the top right there. Guys like Amarian Hampton, guys like Ashton Jeanty, of course, as well. Travion Hendrickson, Quinshon Judkins are kind of the big names that people are talking about at that running back spot. I really don't have a name out there for you. If I'm the Bengals, I'm not addressing this early, right? This is probably a 6th-round pick at the highest for me. So it's whatever running back you think is going to be available for you there in the 6th round, and somebody that you can come in and be that backup guy to Chase Brown. Ollie Gordon the second was the name that I was trying to remember there and was blanking a little bit. But Ollie Gordon the second out of Oklahoma State, I mocked him to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago with our mock draft. That would be probably the name that I would give you here at this point. Will the Bengals sign T. Higgins before free agency? Let me know in the comments of today's video. Keep the comments coming. Got one more segment that we will get to here. Appreciate everybody spamming their 94s. A real one wants Nick Bolton. Don't blame you. Let me know. Will the Bengals sign T. Higgins before free agency? Type Y for yes or N for no. Lots of N's in the comments of today's show. All right, one more segment coming your guys' way. Dane Brugler has an NFL mock draft, and we are going to break that down right now. You are watching Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Stone Shields. Coming up on today's show, Dane Brugler is back with his latest NFL mock draft after the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis last week. We're going to be breaking that down and who he has Cincinnati taking at number 17 overall. Before we get into that, make sure you guys like today's video for me right now. If you want me to do another Cincinnati Bengals mocked draft, I've done one at this point, and there has been some people out there saying we should do another one. And I certainly am open to that. Show your want for me to do that by liking today's show for me right now. All right, so this mock draft from Brugler does have a trade, and this is what the trade is. He's got the Giants trading up for that number 1 overall pick with the Tennessee Titans to get a quarterback. And he has the New York Football Giants taking Cam Ward at number 1 overall. He's got Abdul Carter going to the Cleveland Browns there at number 2. Boy, would that cause some issues there for Cincinnati in the years to come. Travis Hunter, number 3 overall to the Tennessee Vikings. Number 4 overall, Armand Membu, offensive tackle for the Missouri Tigers. For me at the NFL Combine, that was the name that really popped the most to me. People absolutely love this kid, and clearly Brugler does as well. He's got him all the way into the top 5. Another offensive lineman here, Will Campbell, number 5 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, protecting Trevor Lawrence there. Ashton Jeanty at 6 to Vegas. I don't really get that at all. Seems a little bit early for Jeanty. Vegas has all kinds of holes, and they opt to go with running back here. Kind of an interesting selection there for me. Mason Graham, number 7 overall out of Michigan. Shamar Stewart, he's the traits guy, number 8 overall to Carolina. People were raving about him at the Combine as well. Tyler Warren, number 9 overall. I know some Bengals fans were hoping that Warren would fall to them at number 17. Brugler does not see that happening here in this mock draft. Tyler Booker, interior offensive lineman, goes early, number 10 to the Chicago Bears. Michael Williams, another guy on the Bengals radar, 11 to the San Francisco 49ers. Then Teteroa McMillan, 12 overall to the Dallas Cowboys. A few more here before Cincinnati selection. Nick Monwari, safety out of South Carolina. He really blew some people away at the NFL Scouting Combine. Colston Loveland, tight end, 14 overall to the Colts. Jalen Walker to the Atlanta Falcons there at number 15. And then we'll call him Donovan E. Not even going to try on that last name there. Edge rusher out of Boston College. Bit of a surprise. Leads us to number 17 overall, and the Cincinnati Bengals take Will Johnson, another Michigan player in the draft in an early round for Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, and company. 17 overall. They've got them taking Will Johnson here. Dane Brugler does, again, his first kind of mock draft after the NFL Combine. I certainly have a lot of thoughts about this, mixed emotions, mixed opinions that we will get into here on today's show. But first, the pin comment of today's video. Would you draft Will Johnson at number 17 overall? Let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes or N for no. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Down in the comments, let us know what you think. All right, let's get into what Dane Brugler had to say in regards to Will Johnson. He said, I don't know if we'll ever see Johnson run a 40-yard dash. Michigan's Pro Day is scheduled for March 21st, which would be an issue for some teams. But with Johnson's fluidity and footwork, his tape shows a corner who should start immediately as an NFL rookie. Now, I will admit the last sentence does intrigue me, right? What have I always said here on Bengals Breakdown? I'm looking for that number 17 overall pick to be able to come in here and contribute immediately. Brugler thinks Johnson can be that guy. Again, certainly intriguing. But I also think, at the same time, it's time to switch up the approach a little bit if you are the Cincinnati Bengals. You love taking Michigan guys, and even more specific, you love taking Michigan DBs. Dax Hill, DJ Turner. First round, second round. Do you really want to go back to Michigan again? Take another first rounder? I've got a lot of optimism, right, that Dax Hill can develop into a really, really good player. And I think he was on the verge of a breakout season. We heard Duke Tobin at the Combine talk about Dax Hill really developing into a star. Unfortunately, he gets hurt, but another Michigan guy. I know it kind of seems silly to say that it's just, it's just the school he went to, whatever. That's fine. I personally would try to pivot off that. Now, in 2024, Johnson, only played 6 games, was dealing with some issues there. I believe he had a turf toe situation going on for Michigan. Only 6 games, didn't do a ton. That's kind of worrisome for me. Not necessarily the injury, but the 6 games in which he was out there, I don't think he was playing his best football. I think he was a guy that started out his career playing a lot better than he finished it, which is a bit concerning for me. Now, in 2023, he was lights out, right? Of course, Michigan went on to win the national title that year as well, and he certainly was a big reason why they were able to do that. Did a tremendous job against Ohio State as well. I always like to kind of evaluate players and how they do in their big games. He was elite against the Buckeyes, and he was good in the playoffs for Michigan as well. So I definitely get the intrigue in taking a guy like Will Johnson, who a lot of people believe is the best cornerback in this draft. Now, we'll continue with our Will Johnson conversation here in a moment. But first, a shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. I want to let you guys know that Bengals sideline hats are out now. They're available right now. Chatsports.com/Bengals sideline. Go check them out. Got a few of these myself. Obviously, it's the offseason, but that doesn't mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals swag, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. By the way, that link will be in the comments section and the description of today's video. One more time, that's chatsports.com/Bengals sideline. Let's talk some pros and cons here of drafting Will Johnson. Pro number 1, you need cornerback help, right? Need to address that room in free agency or the draft or via trade. Got to get better. Wasn't good enough last year. Again, a lot of hope with Dax Hill coming off a serious injury. We'll see how he does. Cam Taylor-Britt has regressed. He was not good last year. Josh Newton, got a lot of hope for him, but at the end of the day, he was a 5th-round pick. What does his ceiling realistically look like? Mike Hilton probably out the door as well. You need cornerback help. Also, another pro, he can contribute right now. We saw it in the quote from Dane Brugler. There's a lot of people around the league that Will Johnson is ready to rock right now. That's my biggest priority. I've said it a million times here on this show. I want the Bengals' number 17 overall pick to be able to come in and play right away. Not a project, not another Myles Murphy. Can't afford that given where things are at with Joe Burrow and his career. Got to go now. All gas, no brakes. Last pro here for Johnson. He comes from Michigan. He's a national champion. You know that I like this kind of stuff. I like when guys have played in big-time games. Like when they won big-time games as well. Playing in a national title game for Michigan, I think that atmosphere relates, in a lot of ways to what it'll be like in the NFL. Big-time player, played his best in those big-time games as well. Certainly a pro there for Johnson. Who do you want to draft at number 17 overall? Let me know in the comments section of today's video. Be honest with us here in the comments. Any position, any name, I'm here for it. I want to know what you guys think. Let's talk some cons here. We did our pros for Will Johnson. Let's talk some cons of drafting Will Johnson. Kind of what I talked about initially. You've been down this road before. You've taken Michigan guys and you've taken DBs. How has it worked out? Not ready to write any of them off, but I'm ready to try something different. Let's not just do the same thing each and every year. I feel like that's kind of what you're falling into if you take Johnson there at 17. Con number 2, he doesn't help your defensive line. Obviously, he's a cornerback. He's not a defensive lineman. Your defensive lineman was horrible last year, despite the fact you had arguably the best defensive player in the National Football League in Trey Henderson. Beyond that, it was not good. I want to allocate top-end resources to that entirety, interior and edge rusher. And obviously, in this mock, Brugler has Cincinnati not doing that. Lastly, is there too much youth in that room? You could really argue that along the interior of the defensive line as well. I understand that. But again, you got a lot of young guys in there. Maybe you want to add to your cornerback room via free agency as opposed to early in the draft. Don't have a problem with drafting a corner early. In fact, I don't have a problem drafting a corner in round 1 either. But, Mike Hilton probably going to be gone. Shoot, by the time this video is out, it might be official. We, of course, saw his post on social media about, all good things must come to an end. And there's going to be other opportunities down the road. So, Bengals need to address that room. We'll see how they do it. Whether it be through the draft, free agency, or a combination of both. Now, I know you guys have been waiting for this. Wanted to break down some guys that were also on the board when Brugler mocked Will Johnson to the Cincinnati Bengals. A couple of notable names here I want to talk about. Campbell, we spent a lot of time talking about him. He's a guy at that linebacker spot. He can come in, he can play immediately. The thought of Campbell next to Logan Wilson gets me fired up. Mike Green, of course, has the off-the-field concerns there with the sexual assault allegations. He's believed to be a really good player. If things off the field are, in a decent situation with Green, I think a lot of people would think about taking him. Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. He's a guy that can come in and contribute immediately. Gray Zabel, one of the highest-rated interior offensive linemen out of North Dakota State. And, of course, Jedi Barron as well, who some people consider to be cornerback 1 over Will Johnson. 3 more names we will discuss here. Kenneth Grant was still available to you. He, of course, also a Michigan guy as well. And 2 guys I want to touch on here, James Pierce Jr. and Malachi Starks. Both guys that seemingly the Bengals have had a lot of interest in, but Brugler had both of these guys not getting picked in the first round. I still have a lot of question marks with James Pierce Jr. I'm not sure he can be out there for 3 downs, more of a pass rush specialist. Certainly it needs to develop into his frame as well. As you guys know by now, I am all about Malachi Starks. Really think he's going to be a great NFL player. The fact that he wasn't drafted in the first round, I get he didn't test the greatest, but that is hard for me to wrap my mind around. Final synopsis here from me. People across the league, people that talk about football for a living, scouts, GMs, whoever, they would say it would be a steal to get Will Johnson at number 17 overall. But me personally, I'm passing on Will Johnson. I think it's time you try something new, not necessarily just a different school, but just let's try a different position here. I think you can do better, even if he falls in your lap at number 17. Am I going to be up in arms and, be going off if they ultimately select Will Johnson? No, but I'm just ready to alter my approach a little bit, and I think Cincinnati is going to have an opportunity to do that, and I hope they choose to do so. If you made it to the end of this video, we appreciate you. You are a real one. Get your who days in the comments section right now. Sure love for Sam Hubbard. Type those 94s into the comments of today's video. Sam Hubbard, of course, announced his retirement here earlier this morning. Heck of a 7-year career with Cincinnati. Wish him nothing but the best. Very excited that you guys were spamming your 94s all show long. Make sure you hit that sub button as well if you have not done so already. We'll have free agency coverage for you next week as well, and hopefully another live show on Wednesday. That's a little bit TBD, though, with free agency. So we will see you soon, regardless, whether it be on demand or live. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV.